been quite a year, hasn't it?
Yes.
I was telling the first service that my plans for this year did not go the way I thought it was going to. I don't think any of us knew what God had in store for us this year. And it's been, like I said, it's been quite a year. And I wanted to share with you today a little bit of last year, and I want to share with you where we're going this year. It's kind of the state of the church address. And so if I had presidential music playing right now, and you have this da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, and you're all supposed to stand as I come in, so they with all that other stuff. I do not promise you free health care and everything. But I wanted to share with you some things. I want to share with you where we've been, and I want to share with you where our plans are for this year. Because, as I said at the beginning, if I were to share with you what my plans were for last year, it is totally opposite of where we're at. It kind of reminds me of the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul really felt that he was being called to go to Bithynia. And he was actually traveling there, and he got right up to the border of there, and God called him to go to Macedonia. And I saw that happen so many times this year in many different areas that we really felt God was going this way, and then God says go that way. And I think it's important that we as a church always keep our ear to the ground or ear to the heaven as God continues to direct us. You know, we've got a lot of new members here that we never thought a year ago that we would have, and we're just thrilled about that. We have new people that are attending. We've had baptisms. We've had I've counted 6 salvations, 5 baptisms. Pastor Chet had a transition class, or transformation class. I keep going to call it transition. Transformation class that was packed, and now that has fed into the Sunday school area, and he continues to mentor, what'd you say, 5 people? 4 people, 5 people now that he's personally mentoring. And I understand Carol's mentoring somebody right now. And so, I mean, a lot of stuff's happening. And many times we don't see that until we look back and see the pictures. And you go, wow, this was a busy church this year. There was just a lot of stuff that was happening. And a lot of really good stuff. It reminded me of Jeremiah 29, verse 11, where it says, I have known my plans for you. Remember that? Where God says, I have my plans for you, and I'm going to, the plans for you to prosper, and for peace, not evil, and all that stuff. That's what it reminds me of this year. Man has plans, but God changed them. And that's good. Because the thing I find out in my life is when I have plans, sometimes they rust away, and they don't go right. You know, I buy this new car, and it's going to be a wonderful car, and 10 years later it's all rusted away. I want to share with you some of the highlights of this past year, some of the things that we take for granted, and then I'm going to share with you probably the next, probably the last 15 minutes where we're going this year. So I'm going to go through each commission, and I just want to share some things regarding them. And then, of course, we always think of property. When you think of the church, one of the first things you think of is the property. So let me share with you some of the things that happened with property this year. As you remember, in 2012, we started replacing all these windows. They were not completely replaced until 2013. And some of the guys just kept working at it. You know, Dick Shoemaker and Dave Meeker and Steve Peterman. And, you know, they just kept working at it. And so we were able to replace all these windows. Now, for the old UBiCers, you remember that those were plexiglass that we couldn't shut all the way and everything else. So really that has helped, I'm sure, especially with what we're going to be getting here in the next few days. It's really going to help with our heating in that area. The office was completely remodeled. I don't know if you're aware of that, but the office got brand new carpeting. Every room was painted in the office. We even made a little wall for Carol to have her little office area there. So that was done. The ditch was cleaned out. The ditch, our section of the ditch was cleaned out. Okay? The property commission came over with Steve Schaeferly and with his backhoe, and he knew somebody who knew somebody that had a chipper, and so we were able to chip up all that wood that was in there. Now, a fourth sump pump has been added to the church. And you're saying, 4 of them? We got 4 in this church. Interesting thing about the flooding. 3 years ago, the flooding was coming through the septic system. Okay? And when we would have a flood in the basement, we would have to completely disinfect and get rid of carpet and get rid of toys and everything else. Okay, that has been fixed. The property commission put a check valve in, and that actually is working, because the last flood we had was groundwater. The last 3 floods that we've had in the basement is nothing but groundwater. The water is coming from some places that we don't know. Well, let me rephrase that. It's coming from the ground. We know that, okay? It's clean water. When we went down the last time, the Sunday before Christmas, and we vacuumed up all the water, that was the cleanest shampoo job I've ever done in my life. It was clean water that we were sopping up. Now, did we disinfect? Yes, we disinfected downstairs, don't get me wrong. But it's coming from other areas. We are now seeing water in this area that we have never seen before. Dave Doolittle will attest to that. The water is actually coming from the street now. Where it was coming from the septic system, now it's coming from the street. And actually the last flood we had, the last major rain we had 6 inches of water in the parking lot. That actually went all the way up halfway into the playground area, which we've never had before. We actually had trash, what we call flood trash, that was actually up at the sign. So that meant that the water was so high, it went over the curb and went onto the sign area. So it's coming from areas that we never had before. And I know part of it, Ron Monday, who's on the city council, water board. I know part of it is the way the city has redirected some of the water. Now, the city has plans, am I right, Ron? That they're planning on doing the ditch. Right, Ron?
Absolutely.
All right. You heard Ron?
Yeah.
You heard him? Okay. Now, I know Ron keeps his political promises, right? So, the plan is, and the city keeps saying it's the ditch problem. We will see. They're planning on cleaning out the ditch. Hopefully that will take care of it. Like I said, water's coming from areas we haven't seen before. Matter of fact, the last flood, the water actually came from the nursery wall, and the furnace room wall, and the center of the basement. It actually came up through, we literally saw the water seeping up from the doorposts. So that means the water is totally getting under. Now, the property commission has done all that they can do, and they have worked hard on this. Okay, and I commend them. But there comes a point, there's not much else you can do except put the church on stilts. And I don't think you want to do that. So I wanted to spend some time on it, because there's been a lot of questions regarding it. Now, I want to make a comment about the property commission. They did a tremendous job this past year. They really did. They did a lot of work, working on the flooding and everything else. And so I want to commend them as well. Let me get back to this. We purchased a ministry van. Now that was a tremendous purchase as well. I never realized how freeing up that van is. And because you saw the pictures of being able to go Christmas caroling, being able to take the kids and everything else. Now, when we get to the financial part of the church, you're going to ask the question, why did we purchase a van? So I'm going to say this right now. The van was an off-budget purchase that the board had set aside for years. It was not part of the budget. Do you hear me? They had been raising those funds. It was specifically for that. The detailing that was put on the van, that was $200, $350, whatever it was, that was part of the van fund too. So I'm letting you know that, because when we get to the budget, going, then why did you purchase it? Very simply, that was a separate budget item. Okay? Now, but I'm going to tell you, we're already using it, and that's so free, I tell you. Okay, we did have plans for a restroom project. That did not fall through. We are still working on that. What happened is that when we had the architect come in the first time, he said it was going to cost around, was it $15,000? And you always know that the architects are always low. So I said, okay, let's go $20,000. When the bids actually came in, it was $55,000 to $70,000. So that put everything on hiatus right now. Plus, the time that was coming in is when Teddy resigned and stuff. So we were really working on a lot of stuff. I have already been in contact with our new property chairman about that. He already knows that that's one of my main priorities. In fact, we actually had people in the first service came up and says, hey, have you thought about this idea? Have you thought about this idea? So that has not been put aside. We've got to do something, right? Something's got to be done, and so we're going to be working on that. We were also looking at the possibility of a new ramp for the handicap accessibility. That was coming in estimate of $10,000. Then we thought, well, what if we turn the door around out there? Because the main problem with the ramp is what? You come up and the door opens in your face. That's going to be, was that $2,800? $2,800 to do that, because that entitles a whole new door. You see what we're running into? It isn't that we said no to these things. It says that the estimates are coming. We thought maybe you just turn the door around. You can't. You got to have a whole new door. And so we're going to continue to work on those things, but I wanted you to know some of this stuff because a lot of times it's hard to communicate this stuff to you. So that's the property. And once again, I want to really commend Dick. Because Dick was the property chairman last year, and he did a lot of work, and I really commend him for what he did for the church. Sunday school. Let's go to Christian education. Sunday school has grown. As I said, one of the main classes we've got in our Sunday school is the transformation class, and that's actually is the feeder class into our Sunday school area. So when somebody comes into church as a new believer or a new Christian or just coming to visit, we always encourage them to get involved in the transformation class. The 2030 Sunday school classes started, and you saw a picture of them up there. They're packed. And Kevin Odie is doing a good job. Sunday night youth is also going well. By the way, there is no Sunday night youth tonight unless you want to come and be a popsicle. The youth have traveled to Cedar Point, Toledo Zoo, North Baltimore to raid the other youth group New Year's Eve party. Now, I'm going to embarrass Amy Marquardt. She's gone now, isn't she? I can't. Oh, where is she? Oh, good. I'm not going to embarrass her. Let me share a little story about the van and going to Toledo. We went to Toledo for the Toledo Zoo, and God always opens up opportunities from the weirdest times to share the gospel. So one of our youth kids, that just primarily comes on Sunday night, started saying some things, and Amy turned around and told her to be quiet because it was offending her, and it was basically you're misusing the words name and everything else. That girl turned around and Amy said, "Well, are you a Christian?" And Amy goes, "Oh yeah, are you?" And that gave Polly an opportunity, and Polly then turns around and starts saying, "Well, let me tell you what it means to be." Well, no, she goes, "Are you?" She goes, "Yeah, are you?" And she goes, "Well, I'm not sure." Ooh, so Polly gave Polly an opportunity. Polly then starts sharing the gospel. Well, here's the problem. We had another kid in the background. How many of you watched Frozen? The movie Frozen? Okay. So all of a sudden, Polly says, "Well, this is how you become a Christian." And one of the kids in the back who didn't hear all of a sudden says, "So you want to make a snowman?" And starts singing in the middle there. So, okay. But what that did is it showed us where these youth kids are. And so what we're doing is we're backing down and we're going to go to the basics. This is God. This is Jesus. This is salvation. Because a lot of our kids don't do that. See, the opportunity, even in a van, to work on and to share the gospel. So, the nursery is being reorganized and everything else. Now, I want to stop and I have to make a comment about the nursery. As I said, this is the state of the church address, so I can talk about this. First few years, sometimes we get so comfortable coming to the church because we become family that sometimes we would do stuff here that we normally wouldn't do anywhere else. In other words, if you go to another church, would you do this? And the nursery is one of those areas. We need you to drop your kids off and leave your kids down there. In other churches, you wouldn't do that. You would hand the kid off in the nursery, and then you would walk away, and then you would come back and pick them up. We are having an issue with that, and I'm going to say it from here to be nice. But it's important that you drop the kids off and you leave them in the nursery, and if they cry, they will cry for 2 minutes. We are doing background checks. We're doing everything else that we're supposed to be doing. That's something else we instituted this year, background checks. It's important because here's the reason. It teaches your kids to be away from you, number one. Number two is, if you are a nursery worker and you're down there giving your time and somebody else comes in and basically takes over, are you going to want to keep doing it?